Oh, hello there. Welcome to Mrs. Mather's tutorial on the comparative essay. As you know, the comparative essay is one of the three essays that you'll be taking for this class, and I'd like to go over just a little bit of some of the requirements and things to keep in mind as you write this essay. So please do stop if you need to, take notes if you need to, and get as much as you can from this short tutorial. First of all, with any question for any test anywhere, read the question carefully. Make sure that you know what the question is asking you. This is particularly important for this essay because if you are not answering what the question is asking, then you'll get 0 points. That's basically how it works. So if the question is asking you to talk about political order, make sure that everything in your essay is referring to political order. If, on the other hand, it's asking you to discuss the social order of two societies, make sure you're talking about social order. If it wants you to discuss culture, talk about things like religion or writing, um, art, architecture, all of those things reflect culture. So I really highly recommend reviewing those 5 themes and how they apply to the 5 regions that we've studied in this unit. In the question, note the time frame that's being asked. Now that's pretty obvious with this one. It's just going to be the ancient civilizations, and the time frame's not going to be so important. But in future essays, if it says, from the 1700s to the 1900s, make sure that you note that, and you note that in your thesis statement. You are going to be given 3 regions to choose from. Now, we didn't talk about this in class, but you'll get to choose the 2 that you feel that you know the most about and that you can provide enough evidence about. Then the next step is brainstorm everything you can think of about those 2 regions. So if, let's say, you're asked to write about something from the Indus Valley, East Asia, which is China, or Egypt, and you choose China and Egypt to compare, brainstorm everything you can remember, whether or not it has to do about the specific theme, and use the double bubble to organize your thoughts. Then, after you've done that, go back to the theme and write your thesis. So in your thesis statement, this is very important. You have to address the time frame. So let's say that you do write something about ancient China and ancient Egypt. In this case, you'll be able to say ancient China and ancient Egypt. The region, I've already just said. The process, let's say it has to do with culture, then you would talk about the culture. And then you would discuss the similarities you're going to write about and the differences that you're going to write about. So remember, like I said here, the thesis is a roadmap for your essay. I, the reader, will expect to read about the statements from your thesis statement in the order they are written. So let's say for the example, you wrote first about similarities in Mesopotamia and Egypt, and then you wrote about differences in your thesis statement about Mesopotamia and Egypt. That's what the order that I will expect to read them in. So here is a basic template. This one reflects your practice question. I gave this one to you in class, and you can use this pretty much for any compare contrast thesis. Now, of course, you can be more sophisticated as well, but I'd like to keep in mind that you need to address, as I mentioned here, the time frame, the area, the process, which was political organization, the similarity, which would be here. The differences, they were different in that while ancient Mesopotamia blank and ancient Egypt blank. So remember, this template can be used for any comparative question, and remember, you must address all parts of the thesis and be specific so that I know what I'm going to be reading about. Here's the sample thesis. I'm not going to read it out loud to you, but this is a thesis that reflects what I suggested to you that you need to do in your thesis statement. Now we go on to the body. Write in the order of the thesis. I already said this. I'm going to emphasize it again. If your thesis statement talked about the similarities first, talk about the similarities. Actually restate the similarity identified in the thesis as your topic sentence. So you can literally just take that part of your thesis statement and make it the topic sentence for body paragraph 1. Now, 3 to 4 pieces of specific historical evidence. Specific. Oh yeah, did I tell you guys? Be specific. This is the time period where you prove that you know what you're talking about and that you've studied and learned about how these things support your statements. So if you're talking about architecture, the idea that Mesopotamia and Egypt both were able to organize resources in their political organization to build large structures, then talk about the Ziggurat of Ur, talk about the pyramids at Giza. Mention names, be a name dropper. That's a really good thing in an essay. Be a name dropper like Gilgamesh or Menes or Amenhotep or Hammurabi or any other name that you can remember. And then analyze why were both civilizations similar in this way. Now here's an example that I wrote, and you can read through this on your own as well, so um, you can see how evidence was used. Um, Body paragraph 2, this is the differences. Again, restate the difference identified in the thesis as your topic sentence. Oh, what's this? Be specific. Once again, use names, be a name dropper. And then why were both civilizations different in this way? Here's a second body paragraph that I wrote, and a lot of you guys in your practice essays wrote something similar to this. And so I would suggest pausing and reading through this. Now, body paragraph 3, this is a little bit confusing even as a teacher. The additional direct comparison. This is something that is not specifically stated in the thesis, but still reflects the topic of the question. So if the topic is political organization, write about that. If the topic is cultural expression, write about that. And the purpose of this is to show a deeper analysis and understanding of the question. Include one solid direct comparison with a keyword. For example, I talked to you about this in class. Use the word likewise for a similarity or in contrast for a difference. And make sure that they're stated in the beginning sentence of the paragraph. Then use 3 to 4 pieces of historical evidence to support those comparisons and then analyze it. This is where it's really important, once again, to use key words. The reason for this similarity is, or this happened because, or the reason for this difference is because. And that way, I know that I am reading an analysis, and make it deep. Try to make it something meaningful that really shows your understanding of the issue. Here is another example of from the same essay question, and this is the direct comparison that I wrote about in this sample. And again, you can pause the PowerPoint and read through that. Now finally, the conclusion. Restate your thesis. This is really vital, and what I have happen oftentimes is that students will actually do a better job writing their thesis at the conclusion of their essay after they've written the whole thing than they did in the opening paragraph. So this is super important. If you don't have time to redo it, restate it. If time runs up, that's okay. But it is really helpful to restate the thesis. And sometimes people will get their thesis point because they've actually restated it in a more articulate way than they did in the introduction. So in conclusion, I will post on Moodle a comparative essay outline, and I would suggest that you take a look at that and you study through your notes the night before any comparative essay, as well as through the essay outline. Good luck, and make sure to study. Alrighty. Goodbye.